then the next step is we begin to explore looking through the eyes of those that are closest to us. We don't have to make a big jump. We don't have to go to those that are in the streets right away who are having to beg for money. We need to go to our partner who keeps on not doing what she says she'll do. Our child who is acting in a way that feels rude and disrespectful. Or you get the idea. We have to go to what's right there, where our daily way of being with people is in some way annoyed or irritated or feeling ashamed or insecure or whatever it is. So we begin there, and our neural circuitry can do it, but takes attention. This is Pema Chodron. She says, "We don't set out to save the world. We set out to wonder how other people are doing and to reflect on how our actions affect other people's hearts." We pay deeper attention. How are you doing? When we're together and I say this, what's that like for you? What's it like looking through your eyes? Okay. So we're going to do 2 meditations before we end tonight. And the first one, we're going to just widen the circles. The rest of the night's kind of set up to just experiment with this stuff. So find a way of sitting that you can kind of bring your attention right here. And as you come into stillness, in the same way we did earlier during the meditation, just start listening to sounds around you. Listening inwardly, kind of receptive presence. And listen into your life. Sense where there's a relationship that's important to you, where you have some tension, some distance. Not where there's a major, deep conflict or wound. Just something that's kind of a daily tension, or it might be somebody at work that you care about, but you just, there's an edginess. And you might bring your attention to a situation where you can really feel that tension, that distance. Something's going on between you that brings it up. So there's conflict, but nothing too big. So go to the place where you get stuck in reactivity with this person, something they're saying that sets you off, something they're doing, something you're doing sets them off, whatever it is. And begin by just sensing how in these moments it's stress, and you probably are in more of your fight-flight mode than in your let's cooperate mode. And just sense how this person's become unreal, that they're kind of in some way causing trouble, but they're not a real being to you right now. So you can just get a sense, there's a bit of a two-dimensionality going on. You're fixated on what's wrong. Your attention's narrowed. The heart is closed. So you just notice that without judging it. Okay, this is a moment that I'm stuck in that trance of unreal other. It's a valuable naming. One of the signs of trance of unreal others, there's not a flexibility or a spontaneity or an engagement with the person. You're not so resourceful. So you might check inside and notice what's going on. What's happening inside me? Sense, like, go right into where the reaction's coming from. Maybe what you're believing at this time. The person's not being respectful of you. You're not liked. You're not mattering. They're not cooperating. And mostly sense the feelings going on in your heart, your emotional self. So the first part of this is really just to feel where your own suffering or confusion or fear or hurt is. Just wherever you feel vulnerable. Sense what you might need in these moments. So you can just imagine just offering yourself the kindness or attention. It's as if you've really taken a pause, you've stepped out of the situation, you offer yourself whatever you need, and if it helps, you put your hand on your heart. If it helps to send a message inward, you're okay. Trust your goodness. Your intention here is good. The intention is to connect. Just offer yourself something that helps you to find some balance, some presence, some healing. And notice that if you can be kindly toward yourself for a moment, what happens? What's it like when you start to bring the other person into your lens, into your view again? If you've been kind to yourself, then what happens when you start paying attention to the other person? Can you begin to sense, what's happening for this person? What is he or she needing or wanting? Fearing? Can you just look through the other's eyes for a moment? And then, in some way, in your heart, offer what you think that person needs. And notice now who, even if you've only been able to go through this on a partial level, just sense, who are you? When you're in some way opening that lens and trying to look through another's eyes. What is that miracle that Thoreau is talking about? Can you sense a softening of the boundaries? Can you sense the realness, the subjectivity of another person, their consciousness, their sentience? Can you sense that the deepest truth is we, this awareness that we share? Coming back, just opening your eyes, breathing. This is the domain of our practice, that if we can again and again notice when we're in that trance of separation, when somebody else has become unreal, and usually we can't do it when we're in the middle of engagement, because you can't say, wait a minute, I'm pausing, I'm meditating on me, now I'm meditating on you. It doesn't work that way. You have to do it on the sidelines. But this contemplation will begin to train you to do what in psychodrama they call role reversing. And in compassion teachings from the Buddhist tradition, it's taking and sending, that you're actually experiencing being another person, feeling their feelings, and sending them care. It turns the I, the separateness, into a collectivity, a shared consciousness. Once we've done that, we can begin to more, in a more effective and alive way, begin to look at those that we may have stereotyped and in some way not tuned into in their realness. A story that I thought was really powerful was at a meeting that the Dalai Lama was hosting in Dharamsala, where Western Asian teachers gathered. They were discussing Buddhist practice, and I thought this was really incredibly telling, because at one point, one of the Buddhist teachers that was a woman started talking to the gathering about how hard it was for women and feminine wisdom to be included in the Buddhist community. Okay, that there was primarily males and monks, and the hierarchy through history in the different traditions has been male, male, male. So she was saying it's not so easy to be a woman here. And she said they're excluded from opportunities to receive many teachings. They're poorly supported financially. This is the nuns, badly respected and often used more to support the monks than practice their own. Most significantly, men are seen as higher than women. So here's what she did to try to get the monks to understand. Okay? Now, this is, to me, this is really important, because it's just like, how do we look through someone else's eyes? How do we really look through Travis's eyes? What it would be like to be here and have that empty seat. How do we look through the eyes of the woman I described, whose child's growing up, in the streets of Anacostia? How do we do that? Well, this is how she tried to pull it off. She said to try to get the monks to understand, she pointed to the many golden Buddhas and exquisite Tibetan paintings surrounding the room that they were all in at this teachers' meeting, and she noted every one of them was a male. Okay, so here she was, a woman teacher, and all the symbols were all males. Then she instructed the Dalai Lama and the other lamas and the masters to close their eyes and meditate with her. And she instructed them to imagine that they were entering the room and that it had been transformed, so that they bowed to the 14th female incarnation of the Dalai Lama. With her were many advisors who had always been female, and surrounding them were images of Buddhas and saints, all naturally in women's bodies, because it was the best form for becoming liberated. Of course, it's never taught that there's anything lesser about being a man. Despite that, these men were asked to sit in the back, be silent, and after the meeting to help with the cooking. At the end of the meditation, the eyes of every man in the room reopened, slightly astonished, maybe even more slightly enlightened. For the Dalai Lama, he had tears in his eyes, and since then has done a lot just a lot more looking through the eyes of the female. Just one example. Okay? One more example at a camp where they were bringing together Palestinian teens with Israeli teens, and I've talked about this group. It's Building Bridges, and they live together, and they for a week or two and get to know each other, and it's an incredible experience. And at the first of these camps, a Palestinian girl shared how Israeli soldiers had barged into her family's house, beaten up everybody, and then after finding out they were at the wrong place, left without apology. The group facilitator, doing compassionate listening, asked the Israeli teen to repeat the story in first person, including the feelings, the rage, the terror that she might have felt. After listening to the Israeli tell her story, the Palestinian began to weep. "My enemy heard me," she said. The two girls cried together, and then through the remainder of their time, they became really close friends. My enemy heard me. So we'll close with a meditation that just to give you a taste on how we can take some place in our life where we might have not really investigated, but we've created other, and be a little more awake. So we'll just close with that, if you will, just for the last time, come sitting in a way that allows you to deepen your attention. And we begin with intention, because it's very difficult to undo, to unpack the layers of belief and prejudice and bias. And it takes commitment. So you might feel in yourself where that intention lives. The intention to widen the circles, to be part of the healing of our planet. The attention in your own life to stretch some, to perhaps, for right now, just sense someone you know who maybe belongs to a group or category you might in some way judge or reject. And it may be for you that it has to do with race. It might be religion. It may well be politics, because how many of us really are in that sense of right and wrong with very strong feelings that might hitch on to certain individuals, that belong to certain categories. Maybe it's a category of sensing what it means to be ultra right wing or what it means to be ultra left wing. Maybe the category has to do socioeconomic. Our assumptions around that, how much a person's gone through formal education. So just sense someone you know. It may be someone you know personally, or somebody you're thinking of that's well-known, famous, you don't know personally. Or if there's a group that you know that you kind of have a reflex that's aversive, but you don't know an individual, just imagine. And begin to sense, what are my assumptions about that person's character, whoever you're thinking about, ethics, intelligence, worthiness. What are some of the assumptions that you might be making? What happens if you explore, much like the guided meditation that the Dalai Lama was put through, what it would be like to be that person? Imagine you're that person and you're entering a situation where you are viewed as less than. You're entering a situation where you don't fit, where you're different. You might be a person of color in a predominantly white class or church, a transgender child going to school, a poor person without a college degree in a setting with college grads, or a known political figure maybe who landed in the wrong convention. That could be one that's pretty hairy. Whoever your person is in this situation, imagine what it's like to feel that others are looking down on you. The pain of feeling misunderstood. That you're not welcome. That you're not seen, or that you're seen as different and not okay. Imagine what your feelings would be, your feeling of shame or fear. What's this person's fears like? Just try to see through that person's eyes. What might they be, the fears of this person? If this person's in some way clearly disadvantaged, imagine the roadblocks. Not having full access to jobs or proper health care. Higher education, that your children are at a disadvantage. Imagine the shame, they're not good enough. Take a moment to imagine this person as a parent, loving their children. As a friend delighted by something humorous. Just as a human in a beautiful natural setting, taking in the wonder. What happens as this person moves from unreal other in your mind to a living, feeling, sentient being? What happens to your own heart? We close in a simple way tonight with a prayer that we, in our own practice, may embrace the unseen, unfelt parts of our own being, that we not push any part of ourselves out of our hearts. Just to sense that as an aspiration, to truly hold with tenderness every part of our own being. And that these open, tender hearts include all living beings. All living beings. May our lives be dedicated to understanding and compassion. May all beings realize the truth of their belonging. May all beings be free. Namaste.